Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second of 4 meetings for the Hunter Mill District Site-Specific Plan Amendments. I am David Stenson, a planner.
David, I think you're muted.
I can hear you, David.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
Can everyone hear me now?
Or maybe it's me. Sorry, it's me.
Oh, no worries.
I fixed it.
Great.
Sorry.
Great. Oh, I'm David Stenson, and I'm a planner with the Fairfax. Here, can everyone turn off their microphone or mute themselves?
Are we being taped?
Yes, I was going to tell
you.
everyone that we will
Thank
be
you very much.
recorded as well. Yes. All right. Well, again, I'm David Stenson, a planner with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development, and I'm here at Salem Bush, also with the Department of Planning and Development. And for those of you who, if you didn't hear, this meeting is being recorded. So I'm going to bring up my presentation. So for those of you who were unable to attend the meeting we had on Tuesday, the purpose of these meetings is to discuss the site-specific plan amendment nominations received in the Hunter Mill District. At this evening's meeting, we will be discussing 4 nominations received in an area we are calling Western Reston. After this meeting, there are 2 more meetings scheduled to discuss Hunter Mill nominations. One will be on January 31st, when we will discuss nominations around Eastern Reston and Hunter Mill Road, followed by a meeting on February 1st, when we will discuss a nomination received in the Hunter Mill portion of Tyson's. So the agenda for this evening's meeting is to provide an overview of the site-specific plan amendment process and review 4 nominations we received in the Western Reston area. So I will start with a brief overview of the site-specific plan amendment process, its relationship to the county's comprehensive plan, and why your feedback is important related to some of the development proposals we will discuss this evening. I realize those of you who were able to attend the last meeting have seen this before, but this portion of the presentation is for those who are here for the first time. So the site-specific plan amendment process is an opportunity for anyone to submit a proposal for a change to the county's comprehensive plan, specifically for individual properties or a cluster of properties in a small area. The comprehensive plan is a multi-layered document used by both county staff and our elected officials to guide land use decisions across the communities of Fairfax County. The document provides recommendations for how land could be used in the future, how and where future growth can be accommodated, and the protection of our environment and cultural resources. A comprehensive plan is required by every locality in the state of Virginia. It should be noted that the policies within the comprehensive plan are not regulatory. However, they do offer important recommendations for managing future growth in our community. So the comprehensive plan is comprised of multiple elements. The policy plan is one of those elements, and that encapsulates land use guidance that applies to every land area within Fairfax County. Examples include policies related to housing affordability, public facilities, and environmental protection. And it includes policies that could apply to any new development or redevelopment, regardless of the location in the county. We also have area plan guidance, which provides more detailed policy for specific areas within the county. If a nomination from the SSPA process moves forward and becomes a plan amendment, then the focus of the plan amendment will be on the area plans. An important component of the recommendations found in the area plans is the county's concept for future development, shown on this slide. The concept for future development is the overarching guide for area plans. Put simply, it provides a general framework for thinking about where most of our growth is encouraged. There are a number of different categories or land use classifications that are color-coded on this map. Each category represents a different set of recommendations for how these areas could grow and develop over time. Almost all future growth in the county will occur within designated mixed-use centers. Mixed-use centers include the Tysons Urban Center, transit station areas, community business centers, and suburban centers. This map includes the transit station areas in the Reston area, which includes Wheelie, Reston East, Reston Town Center, and Herndon transit station areas. The 4 nominations we will discuss this evening are located in the Reston Town Center and Wheelie, Reston East transit station areas. The Reston Town, sorry about that. I lost my the Reston Town Center transit station area is shown in green, and the Wheelie Reston station area is shown in blue on the map. The nominations are shown as red dots on the map. Within the transit station areas, there are transit-oriented development districts, also known as TOD districts, shown in orange, and non-TOD district, shown in blue. The TOD districts shown in blue are closest to the metro stations and are planned for the highest intensities within each transit station area and are visioned to become mixed-use communities. Non-TOD districts are shown in orange on the map, and these areas are planned to maintain their existing character, uses, and zoned intensities. Non-TOD districts vary in character include the Town Center Urban Core, Town Center North, and the Reston East districts. 2 of the nominations we will discuss this meeting are located in two TOD districts, and 2 nominations are located in non-TOD districts. So next, I'm going to provide an overview of the screening phase of the SSPA process. To help us think through the ideas that were submitted, staff will screen each proposal or nomination for its merits. Put simply, does the proposal support county goals and objectives? Should it be added to the work program? And if so, what considerations should county staff make when reviewing them? The screening process is the very beginning of a long process where a new proposal has been submitted to the county for consideration. I would like to emphasize that this is the very beginning of the development process. Nominations that make it through the screening process and are added to the work program would be evaluated in detail as plan amendments. So the comprehensive plan process is the first stage of review, and there are many additional steps after a comprehensive plan amendment is approved that would have to be reviewed and approved before a project is constructed. So after the community meetings, the feedback received will be summarized for the Planning Commission to inform their discussions about community interest and considerations, and the public is invited to participate in the workshop. And the dates of the workshops are shown on the slide. This will be followed by a review of the Planning Commission and staff recommendations by the Board of Supervisors, who will decide which nominations are added to the Plan Amendment work program. So if a nomination passes screening, then it will be added to the Plan Amendment work program as previously mentioned. Subsequently, staff will support the board in prioritizing plan amendments on the work program. If there are proposed amendments, for example, that strongly align with county objectives or initiatives, then they may be evaluated sooner than other proposed plan amendments. This prioritization may also include evaluating items already on the work program. It should be noted that the timeline for considering a proposal added to the work program will vary. Regardless of timing, we will continue to coordinate with local stakeholders regarding the public engagement process. If a nomination does not pass screening, the nomination is removed from consideration and will not be added to the plan amendment work program. It should be noted that a property removed from consideration for a plan amendment could potentially be redeveloped under its existing comprehensive plan recommendation and prior approvals. Additionally, a proposal removed from consideration for a plan amendment under the current SSPA review could be resubmitted in a future SSPA review cycle. However, any nominations resubmitted in the future will need to demonstrate a change in the proposal or sufficient justification for reconsideration. So as I mentioned previously, we are seeking your feedback about the nominations we received. All feedback is welcome, so I encourage anyone with a question or comment to let us know. So before we start to review the nominations, I wanted to review a variety of common terms used in the comprehensive plan that will be part of this evening's discussion. Two of the most common terms are density and intensity. These are terms that refer to the quantity of development and will be used in our discussion later this evening. Residential density is most often measured in dwelling units per acre. Fewer dwelling units per acre is less dense development. For example, a single-family detached dwelling unit is often located in a 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 dwelling unit per acre development, and is considered low-density development. Townhouses are often at slightly higher densities of 5 to 8 dwelling units per acre, and multifamily is often at a higher density, which is typically 16 to 20 dwelling units per acre for garden-style apartments and 30 to 40 dwelling units per acre for mid to high-rise developments. Non-residential intensity is often measured as a floor area ratio, or FAR, which is obtained by dividing the floor area of the building by the land area. Additionally, residential mixed-use development, which contains both residential and non-residential uses, is also identified by a maximum floor area ratio. We will discuss a few residential mixed-use proposals this evening. Similar to density, the lower the number, the less intense the development. For example, a development at a 1.0 FAR equates to a building size as equal to the size of a parcel of, for example, a 100,000 square foot building on a 100,000 square foot parcel equals a 1.0 FAR. This building could take a variety of forms. For example, a 2-story building with a 50,000 square with two 50,000 square foot floor plates would cover half of a 100,000 square foot parcel, or a 4-story building with 25,000 square foot floor plates would cover 1/4 of a 100,000 square foot parcel. Additionally, a higher FAR is indicative of a larger development. Development intensities planned around the transit-oriented development area of the Reston transit station areas are planned at an FAR ranging from 1.5 to 3.0. So next we're going to review the nominations we received in an area we are calling Western Reston. Staff has taken a cursory look at each nomination and will provide preliminary considerations. The nominations will also briefly discuss their proposals and answer any general questions that you may have. So we're reviewing a total of 13 nominations in the Hunter Mill District. This slide shows the locations of these 13 nominations. This evening, we will discuss 4 of these nominations, which are clustered on the west side of Reston and shown in blue on the map. At the last meeting, we discussed the nominations highlighted in red on the map. At the next Hunter Mill District meeting on January 31st, we will discuss the nominations highlighted in orange on the map. And finally, at a meeting scheduled for February 1st, we will discuss the nomination highlighted in green, which is in the Hunter Mill portion of Tyson's. So the first nomination we will review this evening is for the parcel containing the Town Center office building on Reston Parkway. This site is currently developed with a 61,000 square foot 5-story office building and surrounded by the 275,000 square foot Spectrum Shopping Center, which is located to the north, south, and west. The area to the east across Reston Parkway is developed with townhouse style office and multifamily residential. The nomination site is located within the East Fountain District of the Town Center North District of the Reston Transit Station area. This district is envisioned as an extension of the Reston Town Center located to the south, but at a lower intensity, with a mix of residential, office, hotel, and retail uses in mid and high-rise buildings. The nomination site is planned for office, retail, and/or eating establishments at an intensity of 4.08 FAR and has a zoning approval for a 419,000 square foot office building, up to 23 stories and 330 feet in height. The surrounding Spectrum Center is planned for redevelopment with a mix of uses and buildings ranging in height from 90 to 165 feet at a 0.67 FAR. The nominator proposes an alternative option for the planned and approved office building on the subject site, as proposing a 418,000 square foot residential building that would be 23 stories and 230 feet tall, and which is about 100 feet less than the approved office building. The nomination has also proposed a publicly accessible linear park along Reston Parkway in an area approved for surface parking by the zoning application. Some preliminary considerations from staff are the height of the proposed residential building would be 100 feet less than the office building currently approved for the site, and the proposed height, which would be 230 feet, is closer to heights approved for the adjacent Spectrum Center redevelopment. Additionally, redeveloping the property of residential would provide additional multifamily housing, including workforce housing, within close proximity to retail and employment opportunities. Additionally, the provision of additional housing opportunities supports broader community and countywide goals. Next, Andrew Painter, who represents the nominator, will provide a brief presentation of the nomination.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to bring up let me share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay.
You can see it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for the time. Happy New Year to everyone. It's good to see some friends and faces here. My name is Andrew Painter. I'm a zoning attorney at the law firm of Walsh Colucci, speaking tonight on behalf of RTC LLC. They are the owner of the Town Center office building, formerly known as the Reston Times building. David stole a lot of my thunder, but suffice to say that this is a 2.36 acre site. It's a very small piece of property surrounded by the Spectrum development, the approved but unbuilt Spectrum development to the northwest and to the south. Here is a composite image of the property in relation to the Reston Town Center urban core, which you can see in the foreground, and then the approved but unbuilt Spectrum buildings in the darker orange along Reston Parkway. As David mentioned, this is located in the Reston Metro Rail Station area, transit station area. The baseline recommendation is for office, retail, or eating establishments at approved intensities. The Reston Conceptual Land Use Plan Map contemplates mixed use for the site to include office and residential and retail. Some of the prior zoning approvals, this site was rezoned back in 1978 to the RPC, now the PRC zoning district. There was a development plan that was approved concurrently with the rezoning that depicts town center uses without height or density limitations for commercial uses. Residential uses are permitted at 50 dwelling units per acre. In 2012, the nominator came forward with a PRC plan for the building that is shown on the left-hand side of the screen. As David mentioned, it's a 23-story, 330-foot tall office building. And then we came through in 2016 to reposition the approval with a PRC amendment. We did not increase the density, but we did deal with the building's massing and architecture and had some facade modifications as well. This was a controversial building when it was approved. I stand by it. I was the zoning attorney at the time. I loved it, but it was controversial. And some of the issues that were identified at the time, which David highlighted, and you can see here, is that the building was much greater in height and in scale than the surrounding Spectrum building. At the time, it was not located in a transit station area. That was changed with the 2014 Reston Comprehensive Plan Amendments. At 330 feet, the building was also twice as high as any around it. It was also taller than any of the buildings in the town center urban core. There was also some teaser parking spaces, 21 parking spaces, and a garage entrance, which you can see in these drawings along Reston Parkway. And we felt that we needed those at the time for valet and also, again, for teaser parking for the restaurant use and the office use, but we were contemplating a restaurant on the garage podium. The garage itself housed over 1,000 cars to service the office building, and it was architecturally masked, as you can see here, but you knew it was an office building. So those were some of the issues, and it was again, a very controversial approval. Over the last 3 years, we have evaluated the potential for introducing multifamily residential because we thought about what is the best use for the property, what could best meet the community's goals over the long run. So we are proposing an amendment to the plan that would allow a residential building as an alternative in lieu of the commercial building. We would have similar setbacks from Reston Parkway as approved with the Spectrum development. But we would be changing that sort of teaser parking, those 21 surface parking spaces, into a publicly accessible open space with landscape and hardscaping elements. We are not seeking any increase in density over the existing comprehensive plan text. When we step back and look at what we think at least are the benefits of residential uses, we do believe and agree with staff that new residential would meet the demand for multifamily housing in accordance with the county's strategic housing plan. It would provide sorely needed housing in an area of Reston that is actually planned for higher density development and has the infrastructure available to accommodate that type of housing. So it's not in established residential neighborhoods. It would also drive the demand for office and retail in Spectrum and in Town Center, as well as provide affordable housing. And we would hope would be a catalyst redevelopment project in the Town Center North area. In terms of the landscaping and environmental offerings of the project, this would obviously be upgraded to the current green building policies for the county, which were not in place at the time of the original approval. And then, as David mentioned, we are proposing the replacement of the currently approved surface parking strip along Reston Parkway with a publicly accessible urban linear park and plaza. And the idea here is to try to change the typology of Reston Parkway from just being a sewer for cars, basically, into a much more of a linear gateway and greenway that's punctuated by buildings, similar to President's Park in Town Center and what you see on the other side of Reston Parkway, but to start formulating that kind of greenway. In terms of bulk and massing and height, we think that this is, this is obviously a hot button issue in the past. We do believe this will result in a building height that is 100 feet lower than the approved office building. It's much more compatible with Spectrum. And what it means is that the buildings would no longer create a second sort of focal point that competes with Reston Town Center's urban core in terms of height and massing and commercial uses. This is an image that David showed, and again, this is what's approved with the surrounding Spectrum building. And then this is what it would look like with a lower scale residential building. This is a similar image looking south from Baron Cameron Avenue towards Town Center with the approved office building. And then here's what it might look like with a lower residential building. In terms of transportation benefits, we believe that residential would help realize the Reston street grid much quicker than an office building would. The use would also allow for a substantial reduction in trips on the magnitude of 75 to 80% during the weekday peak over the approved office tower. And then we also want to capitalize on this site's excellent access to public transportation and the investment that we've all made as taxpayers in Metrorail. It has bus lines going to it. It's 3/4 of a mile from the Metrorail station. It has a very high walkability score. And then going down to the very last part of the presentation, whatever happens on the site is likely going to necessitate some sort of zoning action to convert from office to residential. And with that would be new proffers and commitments that are currently not required and are not achievable under the PRC planning process. So you think about a rezoning, think about proffers and all of the different urban parks frameworks and green building policies and other Reston Road Fund policies that have been developed over the last decade. And then the last bullet point, I believe, and staff, please correct me, but I think that this is one of, if not the only SSPA nomination to be subject to the Reston Deed of Declaration. And as such, it does represent an opportunity to introduce new ratepayers into the RA system to offset the association's cost of providing services, but to do so in an area that is metro proximate and is not in established residential communities. So densifying in an area that, again, does pay into the Reston Association, not the Town Center Association. So with that, that's a summary of it. David Tony with RTC Partners or RTC LLC, and Rick Whelan and I are happy to answer any questions. But thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Andrew, for the presentation. I want to open the floor up for comments and questions. And just before we start the discussion, I'd like everyone to think about what we should consider when evaluating this idea. Are there any opportunities associated with this nomination? And are there any concerns that we should be aware of? So does anyone have any questions or comments? And please raise your hand if you would like to speak. And it looks like we have Tammy Petrine has raised her hand. Tammy?
Thank you very much. I'm limp, Andrew. I'm limp. Have you done an analysis of how many units are you proposing in this building?
We haven't developed that yet, Tammy, but it's probably in the magnitude of around 400 or so. And the delta between, just right now, the existing approvals allow for about 138 units. And so that's what the delta would be, between 138 to about 400-ish or so.
Have you done a study of the PRC cap?
We have, and so this would obviously exceed the cap. And so I think the only way that you could achieve that type of density would be to zone out of the PRC district. So I think I see you nodding, but I think yeah. And
If
you're on
you're
mute.
out of the PRC, if you're out of PRC, are you then going to escape from Reston Association? Or are you going to still join?
No, we would still be subject to the deed of declaration. So that means joining RA. It means, or obviously remaining in RA. It means paying dues. It means being subject to the design review board. That's not going to change.
Okay. I just want to make a rhetorical comment. Did I hear you say sewer for cars?
Yes,
Did I hear you use that? Okay.
You did.
I would strike that. I would heavily suggest you strike that. We have bicycles, we have pedestrians, and we have cars, we have trucks, we have delivery vehicles. So please stop with that's a pejorative, and we're up against the parking reimagine thing already. So please strike that. One thing, I was interested in what level green specs are you going for? Are you going for platinum or gold?
So that hasn't been developed yet, but yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. But presumably it would be some manner of lead. And we know that the county continues to push. Correct.
So would
That's
you
right.
go above required? Because
It's too
we're
early.
we would love that.
Right. It's too early to say that, but David and Rick have been so advised that the environmental issues in Reston and having a strong commitment to environmental sustainability is at the top of mind.
Okay. And the last question I had is, you mentioned that you were going to, this would help the grid of streets. I'm not sure I get that. You're on a corner of two streets. Are you intending to buy the parcel to your west, so you bump up onto the street to your west? And are you putting in a north border street?
Yeah, there's a planned north street that parallels or that's perpendicular to Reston Parkway. So that would come with this project.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about, putting improving the grid of streets or completing it. That's what your reference was to?
That's correct, between Reston Parkway and Fountain Drive.
Okay. Are you planning to have a bigger setback than the previous plans?
We held the line in the prior plans. It's just that area was dedicated to vehicle storage and basically a parking lot. So that, we're holding the line, and it all matches up with Spectrum as you go up and down Reston Parkway.
Okay. So you're saying instead of the teaser parkway, our parking lot, you would have it be green and with some trees. Is that correct? Okay. Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Tammy. Good seeing you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I've got a question, John Carter. So Andrew, what are the units per acre on this approximately? So are you above the 50 units per acre? And this is a generic question because we've got quite a bit others that are doing this. Are you going to be over the 50 units per acre?
We will be over the 50 units per acre, correct. That's right. So it would require a zoning out of the PRC, presumably to the PRM zoning district or to some other zoning district that allows this density.
So what density is it approximately?
This would be, if just doing the math back of envelope, probably 160 units per acre, but I haven't done the math in terms of what the the WDU bonus density would be, market rate versus affordable. But it looks like it's about 160-ish units per acre, 169 units per acre or so.
So it could be 20% less if you took out the affordable housing, approximately. We don't have a number. Okay.
Right. And yep.
That's all for me.
Yep. And just one other point. This was also a very controversial issue as far as the density goes when the original commercial project was approved. It just happens to be that we have less land area against which to compute density. If you take certain blocks of spectrum to the south and to the north, it's about an equivalent to about a 4.1 and a 4.2 FAR. So actually between the blocks that are immediately to the south and the north, if you just drew a pattern or, a block around each of those buildings, it would be a very comparable density, right around 4.0 FAR as you march up Reston Parkway.
Good. It would have been my next question, but great.
And it
But
looks
a little
like
more favorable if you went to the south, though. Yeah. Okay.
it looks like Lynn has a question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Hi, Andrew. Nice to
Hey, Lynn.
see you in person. I may be wrong, but it was my understanding that the way that the Reston Comprehensive Plan and the design guidelines for the TSAs were written was that the building height and density is supposed to decrease as you move away from the transit station areas and from the toll road out, either north or south from the toll road. And it seems like this is increasing. So am I missing something here?
The density that was approved, again, this goes back to, this is a very unique piece of property, very unique piece of property.
Yes, I know the background.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only one that we've been able to find where it's just unlimited higher density for commercial purposes. So, I mean, that's what drove the original approval. Presumably it could have been 30 stories, if you could have parked the thing, but it wasn't. And so, what we're seeking to do is just convert the already approved development intensity on the site into residential, and lower the building height. But as I mentioned, the blocks from in spectrum that are immediately to the south and immediately to the north are at a 4.1 and a 4.2 FAR. So this would be at a 4.08 FAR. It is a slight increase in height over the spectrum buildings, but again, it's 100 feet lower than what's currently approved on the property.
Oh, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Hammy, did you have another question?
Yes, thank you. Andrew, you just said something that put my antennas wiggling. You said it was approved for unlimited commercial density. You're
Correct.
suggesting residential. That's not commercial.
That's correct. Yep, you are correct. Yeah, so that's the reason why we are proposing the SSPA nomination, why a rezoning would be required to implement or to convert from commercial to residential.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Lynn, I see your hand up. Is that from the last time, or do you have another question?
Oh, sorry, David. That's
No worries.
my failure to lower my hand.
Okay, if no one has any questions, we can move on to the next nomination.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, the next nomination we're going to review is for a 5.5 acre parcel that's located between Dulles Toll Road and Sunrise Valley Drive, and it's approximately 1/4 of a mile away from the Reston Town Center Metro Station. The subject parcel is developed with a 128,000 square foot 5-story office building with surface parking. The site is surrounded by a low-rise office to the south and west, and the core site data center to the east. The site is within the south subdistrict of the Reston Town Center Transit-Oriented Development District of the Reston Town Center Transit Station area. This area is planned for residential mixed use up to 1.5 FAR, and the ratio of uses is planned for 75% residential and 25% non-residential. The area to the east of the subject property is planned for transit mixed use up to an FAR ranging from 2.0 to 3.0. So the nominator is proposing to modify the existing comprehensive plan recommendations to allow for 100% residential uses up to a 1.9 FAR. The conceptual plan submitted by the nominator depicts a mid-rise multifamily residential building with a parking structure on the north side of the parcel facing the Dulles Toll Road. So next, I'd like to review some of the preliminary staff considerations. First of all, the overall mix of uses recommended for the subdistrict of the nomination property, which as previously stated is the south subdistrict of the Reston Town Center Transit-Oriented Development Area, is 75% residential and 25% non-residential. This area has a high concentration of office, which makes it very difficult to achieve the recommended percentage of uses. Additionally, the comprehensive plan also states that individual developments may have flexibility in the percentage of uses if other uses in this subdistrict are built or zoned with a mix of uses that maintains the overall recommended ratio over the entire subdistrict. Additionally, replacing office with residential could help the subdistrict achieve the recommended mix of uses, which again is 75% residential and 25% non-residential, and would also provide additional opportunities for housing, which is supported by countywide goals. So Brian Winterhalter is the nominator of this presentation. I'm sorry, of this is the nominator, and he's going to present next. Brian, if you could share your screen, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, David. I'm sharing my screen now. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Winterhalter with the LA Piper, and I'm here on behalf of the owner and nominator for this property, which is referred to as Reston Metro Center. The property, as you see here, is on the south side of the toll road between Reston Parkway and Fairfax County Parkway, essentially in the middle between those two, west of Edmund Halley Drive. It's set a bit back from Sunrise Valley Drive. There's some signage and an access road to get back to the property, as you see in the image. To zoom in a little bit, and David referred to some of this already, but the building is roughly 128,000 square feet. It's an existing office building built in 2000. It is currently 100% vacant, and there is surface parking on the site. The ownership has been trying to lease the building for office uses and has not been able to do so. The base recommendation of the comprehensive plan is office at 0.5 FAR, residential at 30 units per acre. As previously noted by David, the redevelopment option currently in the comp plan is in the residential mixed use designation with a 1.5 FAR with a mix of 75% residential and 25% non-residential. In order to make productive use of the property and to move away from the vacant and apparently not in demand office uses for the site, we are proposing a nomination to allow up to 100% residential use instead of 75%. and we are proposing to increase the intensity from 1.5 FAR to 1.9 FAR. This is a layout of the site and how that intensity would be proposed for the overall site. And you see the amenity area, lobby area for the residential, the garage tucked along the north of the site along the toll road, connections with the access road that would be maintained around the perimeter of the property, and the generally triangular shape of the residential building. Here's an illustrative concept plan. It's a mid-rise residential building, 7 stories, again with the parking in the back toward the toll road. Here are some additional views. You see the access road along the north side, the access road along the east side, which ultimately connects down to Sunrise Valley Drive. Again, another view of the massing of the site. Here are some architectural precedents. These are images that are illustrative of what we would envision the residential building and the architectural character of the building to be if it is to be redeveloped with a residential building. One thing I wanted to note specifically as well is that this site is in the area of the planned Town Center Parkway underpass, which I think many of you know already, which would connect from Town Center Parkway on the north side of the toll road to Sunrise Valley Drive on the south side of the toll road. This is an image from the Town Center Parkway underpass preliminary feasibility study. It's a little bit of a rough image, but you can see in red the contemplated alignment of the Town Center Parkway underpass. That study has been completed, although it was a preliminary study. A final alignment is yet to be determined. However, in any instance, it seems quite likely, given the location of the core site data center buildings on the property to the east, that if the Town Center Parkway road improvement is to happen, that it will likely have a significant impact on the site that is the subject of this nomination. Given that potential impact, we are concerned and have had some experience with the fact that a major infrastructure project being built on the boundary or in some cases potentially on the property is having a significant negative impact on leasing prospects for the office building. And most of that is due to the potential impact on the surface parking lot and how that would be utilized by the construction of the project and what impacts there would be to the ongoing day-to-day operation of the office building if it were to be leased by an office tenant or multiple office tenants. One of the things that we also wanted to note and would be contemplated as part of our proposal is that we think that it is appropriate not only for the reasons previously noted in terms of the vitality of the area and residential uses, and so on. But also, if the property is ultimately redeveloped with a residential building in more or less the configuration that I showed in the previous slides, then the surface parking would be removed and there would be structured parking and there would be less impact with the construction of the Town Center Parkway underpass if that is to come to be. So with respect to the overall justification for the nomination, I mean, it's clear with respect to the history specifically of this site, as well as for other office buildings along the toll road corridor and elsewhere in the county and the region, that the pandemic has dramatically affected the utilization of office space. It's negatively affecting older office buildings. This isn't an extremely old office building, but it's also not a new office building. And it's got some outdated layouts on the interior, fewer amenities, and it's harder to respond to post-pandemic design imperatives. And we've seen that borne out specifically with respect to this office building and the leasing activity and frankly, the dearth of interest in leasing this office building in the marketplace. It also provides increased housing, of course. The higher FAR and the higher percentage of residential use would allow more housing than is otherwise permitted under the comprehensive plan. We think that this is very important for the overall area. There's already a lot of office space in this area. There is fairly limited land area and opportunities for additional residential development that may be likely to happen in the immediately surrounding portions of this metro station area once you move outside of the Halley Rise project to the east and more closely aligned with the metro station. That, of course, furthers the county's housing strategic plan it will provide a component of affordable housing. We haven't gotten to the stage where we've analyzed the specific number of units and the percentage of affordable and workforce housing, but of course we would anticipate, fully complying with the county's affordable and workforce housing policies. And lastly, with respect to the Town Center Parkway impact, again, it can't be stated strongly enough that there has been very significant leasing challenges on this site. We think that is due in part to the overall office market, but also in part to the cloud that's placed on the property based on the potential future infrastructure project to be developed on or directly adjacent to this property. And we think that the proposed residential development and elimination of the surface parking in favor of structured parking would provide a better opportunity to respond to those challenges and manage that impact. That is all I have for my presentation, and I will conclude. And thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. And before I open the floor, we did have a comment, and it reads, would it be, and this is the comment, would it be safe to assume this multifamily, would it be safe to assume this multifamily building would be for rent and not to own, and mainly targeted to have studio 1 and 2 bedroom units? Can you answer that, Brian?
Sure. There hasn't been any decision made in terms of whether it would be a for sale building or a rental building, but I think it is probably much more likely that it would be a multifamily rental building. With respect to the mix of studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, it's too early in the process to identify the specific mix of units, but I think it would be consistent with other multifamily buildings in the area.
Thanks. So if anyone has any questions or comment, then please raise their hand. And it looks like Len has her hand up. Len?
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate it. Hi, it's good to see you again.
Hi, Len.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. You mentioned that they are unable to lease the property in its current iteration. And I'm just wondering what the lease rates, or if they've done a comparative analysis of the lease rates for that property compared to the adjacent properties and how those compare.
Yeah, I can get you some of that information. I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can provide some of the rates. But it has been challenging. And also, for what it's worth, I imagine the lease rates for the core site data center and the folks who are using that data center facility are going to be different. So that's not necessarily a great comparable. But other office buildings that are similarly situated, yeah, we can give you some of that information.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Sure.
it. And then my second question, when you talk about affordable housing, is this affordable housing designation, is that going to be targeting the 60% AMI and under, or is this going to be market rate workforce?
So
housing?
Yeah, good question, and happy to clarify that. So it would be a market rate building that is inclusive of the affordable and workforce housing policy or units that the county would require under their policy. So most likely it would be exempt from ADUs, the affordable dwelling units based on the construction type. However, it would be subject to the workforce dwelling unit policies, which, as you know, escalate in percentage based on the FAR of the project. And those, there are changes contemplated, as you also know, in the Reston comp plan draft about the expectations and the income levels for workforce dwelling units. So we would comply with all of those policies as they are ultimately, whatever the policy is in Reston that's ultimately adopted in the comp plan amendment.
I appreciate that, Brian. I would just ask that you consider and have your client consider going beyond what is required by Fairfax County. I know that the developer of Aperture did so and has provided true affordable units there that goes above and beyond. And it really is a need in the community. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed, understood. I appreciate that. And I had the good fortune of working with Chuck Veach and the folks on that project. So
You're a lucky man.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Tammy has her hand up.
Thank you. Quick question and a comment on that. We all want to pay attention to the fact that unless it's changed and educate me if it has, aren't these WD and ADU units only a 30-year window that those lower rates accrue and then it can return to market rate? Is that correct? That time frame hasn't been extended, has it? It's 99 years in Montgomery County.
I thought it was 50 years, but I will
It is
confirm that
50?
for you.
Oh,
I
that would.
thought I don't hold me to that because I don't want to say something out of turn, but I thought it was 50 rather than 30. But I will follow up with you, Tammy, and let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. A question about this specific parcel. Are there any easements across it?
There are some access easements across it, which would in some way end up being no longer necessary if and when the Town Center Parkway underpass is extended across the frontage, or I shouldn't say frontage, but the eastern boundary of the property to connect to Sunrise Valley Drive.
The reason I was asking that is from a former P&Z project not involving this structure at all. There are supposedly a huge number of cables running through this area that were to go underneath the Town Center Parkway. And that caused almost a heart attack of the core site owner. He was unaware that the Town Center Parkway. So I just was curious how those cables got from core site over there, unless there was some sort of easement on the edge of your property. So just, being aware of that. Okay. So if you don't know the composition of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, then you're not going to be able to answer the next question of approximately how many DUs you're planning for this site?
No, other than to say, and it's early in that in the planning, of course, but I would say at the intensity proposed at 1.9 FAR and based on the size of the site and 100% residential use, you'd be roughly in the neighborhood of 460,000 square feet of potential density. And that would, if we're using as a rough approximation, 1,000 square feet per unit, that could be around 450 to 460 units.
Okay. Okie dokie, and we said it's probably going to be for rent, but you still don't know at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And obviously you're doing market studies and you're listening to these other, and you've been giving the other SSPAs and know that the amount of residential being proposed is astronomical. So I'm a little concerned by that, if we can even fit all the new folks in with the schools and the services and the sewer and the water that they all will require. But that'll be determined later. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yep. Thank you.
Hey, Tammy, it's Salem Bush from the Department of Planning and Development. I just wanted to follow up on your previous question. Just you asked about the WDUs and the commitment time frame. It's for a new development today, it would be a 50-year time frame commitment for this.
So much. That's wonderful news. Very much appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I just said that under my breath.
Yes.
Thanks.
It's 50 for the rental, but isn't it 30 for the for sale?
I'd have to check on the sale. Yeah, for the rental, 50. Let me double check our code real quick. I'll get back to you on it.
So I have a question, if it's appropriate. So could you go back to the site plan? I missed where the Town Center Parkway actually lands on the site. Could you show us that?
Sure.
Even if it's not drawn, you can run your cursor.
Here, so to go back, whoops. Here we go. So here's the Town Center Parkway alignment that was in the preliminary study. And in the study, it essentially straddles the property boundary between this property here and the core site data center property here.
So
So if
could you
you-
go to the site plan that you have so that?
Yeah,
it's
so it
hard
would
to see.
basically
Yeah,
be, it'd be right here.
right there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's one question. Um, do you know what the bonus would be on here? And here's my thought. It would be useful on these sites. I want to be careful how I say this, but to start with what the existing or proposed comp plan says, is a chart that would show that, and then what you're proposing. It looks like you're close, but it depends on how much the bonus is factored into this.
Yes,
So-
understood, and I agree. And so we haven't done those detailed calculations, but approximately it would be at a 1.5, if assuming the development were all residential at a 1.5,
Yeah,
the bonus density would be roughly a 0.2 FAR to take the overall intensity to approximately a 1.7 FAR.
yeah. Well, I think it's 1.8. If you did, if 20% increase, I believe it would be 1.8, which would be awfully close to where you are. I just think that would be a good starting point. I know you tend to bring in, well, we need more housing and we need more affordable housing, and the market isn't good for the housing, and that's a good perspective. But the other perspective is how closely in compliance with the existing comp plan, or maybe even the proposed comp plan, would I think it would be a useful chart, and then add some of the other bells and whistles that might be in the comp plan, the green building notion, tree canopy, some of those things that would make these. I think it would help your case, I think, to do that. And then so basically you could be very close to the existing FAR. And if you used Lynn's perspective, if you went a little higher on the affordable housing, you would be almost right there. But the other aspect is this percentage. So that's an office building next to this, correct? So,
The building to the west is an office building. The building to the east is the core site data center building.
so there might be a justification there to keep these percentages in line. It's kind of winking at that, I guess, and you might think this is sort of land use technicalities, but I think just this comparison would be good. Is there any way to bring that office building in with this? Would that be even possible, so that you could get the percentage to work?
Yeah, sure. So we have not talked to the owner of that office building. We haven't explored that option. It's something we could do, but I think we would still like to be able to maintain a certain density to achieve a certain scale of the residential building that would make sense for the site, which is based on the nomination that we submitted. But I understood your point on the intensity, where we would get with bonus density. That's something that we're happy to explore as well. So
Yeah.
we can follow up on those items.
Yeah, my point is you just might be a little closer to the comp plan than you think you are now.
Yeah.
Which would be a good thing, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lynn has her hand raised.
Thank you, David. I appreciate I did take it down and put it back up, so you knew that this was really a second question. Brian, one of your slides that showed an illustrative plan, and it had a retention pond or a detention pond. I don't know if you can bring that up, but I don't know if that shows the current, there's water there
There's
already.
this. Yes. This
That
is an
one.
existing condition. Yes.
Yeah. So what's going to happen to the water? So this is a pond, I take it, that is on the, I'm guessing this is the east side of the building, or the west side rather.
It's sort of, yeah, sort of the southwest area is down here. Yes.
So what's going to happen to the area outside of that retention pond? Is that going to be filled in?
If you can see my cursor, you mean this area here?
No, I meant up north from there.
Up
So-
here?
Yeah, so there's a triangle that is around the retention pond. What's going to happen to the pond above your triangle or there?
Outside of our site, you mean?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so we are not intending to change the pond. We may have some
Okay.
supplemental tree planting in here with the removal of the parking lot.
Right.
But we're not intending to change the configuration of the pond. We would, of course,
Okay.
need to review and meet all of the stormwater management requirements for our site, which we would do with a series of new stormwater management facilities that would be different and may utilize the pond in some way, but the engineers will probably tell us that that's not going to be the county standard, and we need to do vaults and slower release rates and those sorts of things. So all that would be figured out if and when we move forward with a rezoning application. But to answer your question, the short answer is we're not intending to change this pond in any way, and we're not aware that any of the other owners around us are intending to change it in any way.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate
Sure.
the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, if there are no more questions, we can move on to the next nomination. Thanks. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next nomination we have is Reston Corner, which is a 14-acre site located at the southwest corner of Reston Parkway and Sunrise Valley Drive. It's about a half-mile away from the Reston Town Center Metro Station. Currently, Reston Corner is developed with 3 office buildings totaling approximately 300,000 square feet. The nomination property is located in the central Sunrise Valley non-TOD district of the Reston Town Center TSA. And the comprehensive plan recommends office up to 0.5 FAR and residential use up to 30 dwelling units per acre within a half-mile of the Reston Town Center Metro Station. Approximately 60% of the site is within a half-mile radius of the Metro Station. The site also includes a zoning approval for 1 multifamily building with 145 units and a freestanding parking garage. The area to the north across Sunrise Valley Drive is planned for transit station mixed use up to an FAR ranging from 2.0 to 3.0 and includes the Halley Rise development, which is a mixed use development currently under construction at an FAR of 2.6. The U.S. Geological Survey headquarters is located to the west, and office use up to 0.5 FAR is located to the south. The area to the east across Reston Parkway is planned for and developed with multifamily residential at 13 to 20 dwelling units per acre. The nominator is proposing to add an option to the plan recommendations for residential mixed use up to 1.5 FAR. The conceptual plan submitted by the nominator depicts 3 additional residential buildings on the existing surface lots, which are shown in yellow. The existing office buildings shown in blue would remain. Some preliminary considerations are that the comprehensive plan notes that areas designated for residential mixed use are generally 1/4 to 1/2 mile from a metro station, but there also may be redevelopment opportunities slightly further than a mile. So as stated previously, approximately 60% of the site is within a half-mile of a metro station. Additionally, the area to the north across Sunrise Valley Drive is planned for mixed use at higher intensities. And finally, adding residential would create a mix of uses to complement the existing office and provide additional opportunities for housing within walking distance of the Reston Town Center Metro Station, as well as supporting broader community and county-wide goals. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Calabrese, who's going to provide a presentation of the nomination.
Thank you, David. Let me do my screen share, so bear with me.
No problem.
Right one. Too many PowerPoints this evening. That's not it. Bear with me. I had it all lined up. It worked seamlessly 15 minutes ago in Mount Vernon, too.
It happens to me all the time, so take your time.
This, by the way, is why I loathe Teams and I never use it if I can avoid it. And then it's there. I just had it open.
Well, while Tony is looking for his, would it be advantageous to go back to your introductory slide, David, so that we can get a better sense of kind of what the footprint is again?
Sure, we can do that.
And just to
And
clarify,
Tony-
Commissioner Carter was correct. It's so it's 30 for sales for workforce housing, so it's a 30-year covenant, and then 50 years for rental units.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
Tony, this is
that's-
Stephanie with Land Design. Would it help you in any way for me to access the file and open it?
No, I've got a different one, Steph. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
trying to be my white knight. I literally don't know why it's not showing up on my screen. So
We can see it now, Tony.
that's the wrong one. And I closed all my other PowerPoints for this very reason.
Tony, you provided me the presentation earlier today. Would it? I
Yeah,
could
let's,
bring it up.
David. Yeah, please. I literally don't know why it won't come up.
Okay.
I'll have you flip through with alacrity. Thank you, sir.
Sure, no problem.
All right. Well, I have to say it's tough to follow my younger and handsomer colleague, Mr. Winterhalter, but I'll do my best. And obviously, his technical skills far surpass mine. David, we'll just go to the next one. You can bring that down just a little bit. I think as you succinctly summarized, there's office up to 0.5 with 30 dwelling units per acre within a half mile. As you noted, we're within 60%. We're 60% of the site is within metro, and we're looking for a mixed use, residential mixed use designation for reasons that I will quickly rifle through. Next slide. If you all have an opportunity, not at the moment, but Link is the group out of the Carolinas who are the relatively new owners for about 4 or 5 years now of this 3-building complex. The more I've gotten to know them, and we've had an opportunity, I know, to brief Commissioner Carter and several members of staff, it's a really impressive organization. Let's go to the next slide. Feel free to look them up. As you can see, they're actually national in focus, but they're based on the East Coast, and they're particularly interested in the Washington, D.C. area. The previous slide shows one that's under construction in D.C. that's really quite attractive. I think they'd be a great corporate addition to our wonderful community of Reston. Next slide. This gives you a flavor. I don't remember if it was Tammy or Lynn was asking the question. This gives you some sense of what's typical for a mix of the studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms of most of their complexes. One of the things that they really focus on their amenities. Frankly, they tend to focus on younger, relatively recent graduates who want to be proximate to the job market that is the Reston Town Center and the surrounds. We have a lot of young, healthy people, as you can tell by all these amenities. And one of the things that's really attractive about Reston generally, and this site in particular, is the proximity to so many different bike routes. Next slide. They literally have one of those bike amenity areas in every one of their properties. They have some real skill in juxtapositioning and including residential proximate to office buildings. This is just one example that's indicative in Charlotte. You can go to the next slide, David. And you can, again, learn a lot about them. And I think their success on the website. I think it's important to highlight the northwest quadrant, the upper left residential building has already been approved. That portion of the site is actually zoned PRM, and I think a number of you actually participated in that. And so the goal is really to better integrate this property. And I think really to give even the office buildings a bit of a facelift. Everybody can't afford the Reston Town Center. There are a number of older buildings within the areas and concentric circles around the town center that I think merit not just being mowed down, although some of them I think need to be revitalized, but having these buildings, which frankly includes Reston Association, as probably most of you know, really surrounded by some vitality, by creating some really attractive open spaces as land design has started to lay out, as reflected here, I think would be a unique opportunity. And frankly, we'll go to the next slide, complement the extraordinary changes that are happening in and around the town center. You all are intimately familiar with Reston Crossing, reflected just to the south and east of the metro landing, Haley Rise. I think you can get a flavor for the reduction in densities. We think this is a more natural transition. Reston Corner, Reston Crossings at 3.0, Haley Rise at 2.45. Our proposal with the 2 additional residential opportunities would be at about a 1.25 and then transition down to office at about a 0.8. So it's a very natural transition down in density from the town center, from metro as you head south. Next. Again, it's astounding to me, having worked literally from 1986 on the Reston Town Center zoning, being there when Mercury Fountain was unveiled, seeing the extraordinary vitality of Reston, this community, many of you on the phone and the computer, what's happened here on the south side with the advent of rail and finally the opening of the Silver District. It's a really compelling story. We have probably the most vibrant office market, certainly in the region, if not in the country, and having the right mix of uses, we think are entirely appropriate. Having that walkability to metro at less than half a mile, we think is a great chance to really invigorate this property, this 14 acres. Next. Just some imagery of what's happening at Haley Rise. Next image. Immediately to the north. And really, I think what could be incorporated into an area that is 3 office buildings, really pretty much surrounded by mostly surface parking. Good questions about stormwater management and creating, I think, public amenities, work areas, flexible gathering spaces that just don't exist, certainly in the quadrant out there today. Next. You all are intimately familiar with the bike routes. I think that's one of the things that link, and the demographics of the folks that we hope will ultimately be here would be very intrigued. Next slide, and I'm almost done. I know I violated my 5-slide rule, but I wanted to give some sense and context. Again, the quick recitation, 14 acres. Site is both I-4 and PRM. That's what's in the yellow in the northwest quadrant. 145 multifamily units already approved there, and 60% of the site within that walkable radius. I think we're almost done. One of the next, I think, go ahead, David. You can keep going. We already went through that one. We talked about the transition down in density, the overall experience, both internal and external to the link buildings. Next. You can keep going. I think you already showed that slide or something close to it. I think this is another important and the last element of what we would submit to you all. The site there on the left-hand side, that green road is on the county comprehensive plan. It actually slices through the eastern areas of USGS. I don't think any of us would be very successful convincing the federal government to give up right-of-way for a new road on its property. And one of the things that we would propose there on the right-hand side is instead a parallel road. You see that red road, if you will, that leads through the site and can go down and connect north and south. That's a much more likely to be viable right-of-way. I think I'm on my last slide. I did want to hit a couple of questions that I heard that you all raised with Brian. Water, sewer, stormwater management, school capacity issues, all very legitimate and incredibly important topics. We look forward to having the opportunity to work with Supervisor Alcorn, Commissioner Carter, the members of course, the Design Review Board and P&Z on a site that I think just has tremendous potential. We think this comports exactly with the objective of looking at properties with a fresh eye under this SSPA process. We really appreciate the opportunity to brief you on it tonight. And I'll wrap up, David. Be happy to leave that up or answer questions with or without the graphics.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Tony. Does anyone have any questions? And Len has her hand up. Len?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Tony, thank you for this this presentation. I'm glad we got to it. I have got 3 questions for you. First, I'm really impressed that you mentioned that you worked on Reston Town Center and you made mention of the Mercury fountain. That's very impressive. So that means that you know the importance of design guidelines within Reston. So while I appreciate the wonderful work that your client has done in other areas, I just want to reiterate the importance of architectural excellence that Reston is looking for in our own design guidelines. We're not looking at replacing other successful properties in another area if it doesn't fit within the Reston design guidelines. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is that the grid of streets that you referred to in the current comp plan, I just want to reiterate that is a conceptual grid of streets, and we have experience that there are certain lines that were drawn on a piece of paper that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. So just want to make sure that just because it's in the comprehensive plan as a conceptual grid of streets doesn't mean that it's something that really fits with the community. So I would urge you to make sure that that is something that you all work with the community and of course Fairfax County DOT to make sure that that fits.
Lynn, thank you for the comments. I thought when you started out, you were going to tell me I was as old as Mercury Fountain.
No, I wasn't going to do that. I'm from the South.
Okay.
We don't do that.
I probably am. I'm intimately familiar with the incredible standards that have been created in Reston. I was very much involved actually in the creation of the Town Center Design Review Board and know many of the good folks who've had a hand in making Reston really one of the most spectacular and successful communities, not in our region, but in the country. I hear
thank you for your efforts in that regard. We really appreciate it.
Good suggestions, and we've got both the owners as well as the terrific architects, planners, and engineers listening. So I know we're all taking good notes. Look forward to having an opportunity to work through those details. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Tammy has her hand raised. Tammy?
Oh, yes, we can't do without my questions, I guess. I was wondering can you put that slide up where you have the red street winding through this proposed development?
Tammy, apparently I can't, but David's going to do it for me.
Yeah, David, could you do
bring
that?
it up. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Let's see.
It's up one, David. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Is there even a possibility of the right-of-way required by a VDOT street
Yes.
snaking those buildings? Are you going to be having any setback at all?
Yes.
It looks remarkably congested. And then if I'm contemplating correctly, there's no, on this slide within your yellow trapezoid or whatever it is, you don't show the parking garage. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. The parking garage actually would be, David, if you could, I don't know if you can highlight right there. That would be the parking garage, Tammy. And just to your good question, we've analyzed it. We don't have to do this road. We think it is possible. It would be certainly a 2-lane undivided. We think it could be done in a thoughtful and attractive way. We have not gotten to the level of detail with FCDOT. I absolutely agree with Lynn's earlier commentary, particularly having done a lot of projects in Tyson's. Sometimes there were lines drawn on a map that can't be achieved. I think this is a perfect example of why this process is so important to analyze. Is this possible? Is this desirable? Is this a benefit or not? And this application would be a great way to help, I think, run that topic to ground. We're not wed to doing this road, but we think it's a lot more viable than the county going hat in hand to USGS and asking for right of way across their campus.
Oh, we don't want anything done to the USGS campus, period, end of statement. But this red arrow thing is actually going through the parking lots of viable business and right in front of them. So that the ones to your south. So the two buildings that are west of the, or looking at this, would be left of your arrow, below your yellow. So that's that. The other thing I was curious about is currently on the site, in the front yard, so to speak, of the RA building is a phenomenally beautiful stream. It's a pond with beautiful vegetation, and it's quite an extensive, good use of stormwater management there. And I see your building is plopped right, the northern east building, that's sort of the lazy L, or L with a little hook on the end, is right on top of that. Are you,
Yes.
is that on purpose, or are you planning to demo that, or what's the, I see then to the west of the L, and north of the RA building, you have what's green, and looks like that would be, usually green on these things is, you know, natural area, but that's where your parking garage is. So this is a very confusing to me diagram, because it's showing things that wouldn't happen if there's a parking garage there.
The parking garage is in the western portion of the site, the southwestern quadrant. Again, David, if you could highlight where that is. It's to the left of the red area. That's the parking garage.
That's the parking garage.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
quite all right.
Okay.
Well,
So
we are looking at a tiny graphic, and we are getting into, you know, pretty extensive details, but we're keenly interested in doing something really noteworthy on the site. Land design has already, even though we're only at the SSPA stage and really at the beginning of the beginning, land design has done a noteworthy job, I think, and some of the other graphics that we highlighted, figuring out where we can do some very special places on the property, frankly, that where you take the energy both from the site going to the north to Metro and kind of bringing it back down. We definitely like, I think it was Commissioner Carter who made the point, the opportunity, frankly, for folks who work in those buildings to live literally right next door. What better TOD, what better traffic calming, if you will, can you implement? So I appreciate the detail. We've actually scrutinized the site very carefully, and we'd be excited to have the opportunity to get that level of detail. Love to meet anybody who's interested out on the site at the right time.
So the green on the north edge between your two buildings that front on Sunrise Valley, that actually is a green area.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay. All righty. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I apologize. I completely missed that the garage was this southwest. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Is Lynn back for round 3? I can't tell.
I'm back on this
Oh, I'm
project.
sorry.
John Carter.
I'm not. I need to lower my hand. Sorry about that. Thanks, David.
So
You're
I've
up,
got a
John.
couple. I've got a couple of comments. You know, I know you pretty good now. We've worked together on various projects. I'm going to say pretty much the same thing was said on the last project. I think what's happening on these SSPAs, and I know you well enough to say this, that this is not your intent, but it seems the process is, who cares about that master plan or comp plan? We're here now and forget all that. I think a comparison, and I think you would come out pretty good on this, a comparison of what does a comp plan say now. Of course, we don't know exactly what the new comp plan is going to say, but probably not a lot different on this site. So I think beginning these things or somewhere in the presentation is a comparison. And I'll just point out, you asked for 1.5 FAR, but you really only want 1.25. So that's I think we could make that clearer. I think that road, the so-called red road, I think that's already been approved in the last project. I think it was already talked about. And the other things that you talked about, the stormwater, maybe we don't know a lot about it, but the commitment to green infrastructure and the lead, all of those things you would naturally be doing. I just think it's better for the SSPA process to be showing, well, maybe it's a little bit different, but here's the ground truth with that. It comes across, and again, I'm not saying that this is what you do, because I know it's not what you do. This feeling is that forget these comp plans. You all spend a lot of time on this and neighborhood, and that's nice, but we're here now. Forget all that. Now, I don't think that's what you're doing, and I'm not sure the last project was really doing that. So I think starting out or including somewhere in your presentation a comparison and what's the really difference between this versus that. And this one seems not too far. So, and you've got other points to make, but and then the last one I'll leave you with, this one says, gee, we like this office building we have, and this is a great idea to have the housing with the office building. What a great project. And that makes a lot of sense to me, as we've talked about this before. But the previous project said, forget all this office. It doesn't have any markets. I think the community needs a better explanation of when it counts and when it doesn't. So it seems like everyone is doing this from a marketing perspective. And of course you should do that. But I just think a little more ground truth comparison with existing. And then this whole market thing, it seems like everybody does this a little bit different. So that's a lot of confusion perhaps, but I think you get the gist of what I'm talking about. And I do think you're closer than you think you are.
I actually think we're quite close, Commissioner Carter. I appreciate your good constructive suggestion, and I guarantee you the PowerPoint will work the next time we do it. So we'll have a slide that is close to what you just suggested. Thank you for your constructive suggestion, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Tammy has
Yeah.
one more question.
Really, just a clarification. You gave the percentages of 20, 60, 20. Was that studio, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. David, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity, and we'd be really excited to continue on in the process.
Thank you, Tony. I'm going to move on to our final nomination tonight. Let me just bring up my PowerPoint. Okay, our final nomination is for a parcel located at 1950 Roland Clark Place, and this is in the Wheelie Station TOD district of the Wheelie Reston East Transit Station area. This parcel is developed with a 90,000 square foot 5-story office building. The site is bounded by the Dulles Toll Road to the north, a mid-rise residential building to the east, townhouses to the south, and the Reston Heights mixed-use development to the west. This site is planned for residential mixed use up to 3.55 FAR, of which 75% is planned for residential and 25% is planned for office. So the nominator has proposed to modify the mix of uses recommended by the comprehensive plan to permit the redevelopment of the property with primarily residential use. Now, the nominator has proposed a public use to satisfy the requirement of the 25% non-residential component recommended by the comprehensive plan. The conceptual plan submitted by the nominator depicts a multifamily residential building with structured parking. The proposal would include publicly accessible open space, which is shown in green on the conceptual plan, and an indoor public facility shown in pink. And this indoor public facility could be developed with a sports court or some other active use. So some of the considerations are the nominator stated that developing non-residential uses such as office is challenging because the site is a half-mile away from the Wheelie Reston East Metro Station, and it's also not visible from Sunrise Valley Drive. Alternative uses, though, whether for residential or the proposed public facility, should be considered in relation to the site layout, surrounding uses, and the ability of those uses to attract and welcome the public as appropriate through attention to urban design, street layout, and placemaking features. And like the other nominations we reviewed this evening, this proposal would also create additional housing opportunities, which is supported by broader community and countywide goals. So next, Amanda Williams is going to present the nomination. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Let me pull up presentation, which hopefully you guys can see that.
We can see it.
All right, awesome. So Amanda Williams, land use attorney with Cooley, happy to be here tonight on behalf of Bruce Bernstein and Neil Greenblum, the property owners at 1950 Roland Clark Place, to discuss our SSPA nomination. So thank you first, David, for your presentation and for your work on all these nominations tonight. We appreciate it. As just discussed, but a quick overview of the site we're discussing here, outlined in yellow, off of Roland Clark Place, bounded by the toll road to the north and east of the Reston Heights development. As you just heard, the general plan recommendation for this site is for 75% residential and 25% non-residential uses. Specifically, our plan amendment proposal for the site is to maintain but modify the RMU designation by removing the specific use mix percentage and permitting redevelopment with primarily residential uses with a public use component to serve the Reston community. The owners envision a redevelopment offering a multifamily building with a meaningful indoor public facility and an outdoor public open space to really complete the neighborhood in this area and provide a cohesive public amenity. I'd also like to briefly mention here the current in-process Reston Task Force Plan amendment language that does make some changes to the language applicable to Roland Clark Place, this Roland Clark Place site, and provides some allowance for public uses on the site. We are still proposing this SSPA despite that for a couple of reasons. First, the timing and what language may ultimately be adopted with that is uncertain at this stage. And then second, in conversations with county staff, they've communicated that the current task force language is not sufficiently clear to permit what we're proposing here. It almost makes it a bit worse, which may or may not have been the intent. But we did propose language probably 10 or 12 months ago at this point during the task force's review process, but that is not in the current draft. And so unless we can fix that task force language, we do believe that the SSPA nomination is the necessary step to achieve what we are proposing for better utilization of the site. So a little bit of additional background on the comp plan recommendations. Prior to the current version of the comp plan, the site was planned for 100% commercial uses. The Reston Center for Industry and Government covenants prevented residential development along the toll road, including this site, until 2011 when vacated. The current comprehensive plan then sought to correct this lack of residential and also lessen the traffic impact of that for those office uses, and recommended 50% residential minimum for this site. and a 70% residential and 25% non-residential uses for the overall RMU area. The county's expectation with that was for infill development to occur around the existing office buildings that would remain. Instead, what has happened is office buildings are being torn down and entirely replaced. And for sites like 1950, that is impossible to achieve under the 75-25 use mix that is now really being enforced on an application basis and not on an overall basis. So this gives a summary of what those challenges are that kind of are making it impossible to achieve a 25% non-residential development for this site. First, the existing building is functionally obsolete at this point. Built in the late 70s, early 80s, it has a waning useful life, increasingly growing vacancies and diminishing value. Also demand shifting away from the suburban office park, which you have heard tonight and heard in previous presentations and will continue to hear. And that demand is shifting towards the amenitized, accessible, walkable new spaces adjacent to the metro. Size is a specific concern for this site. The site is 3.5 acres and with a 25% recommendation for non-residential uses, which under the plan is to be calculated together with the directly adjacent site to the east. That would require roughly 170,000 square feet of commercial square footage, which is simply not feasible, particularly given it is buried at the end of a road with a lack of passing car or foot traffic. The site is also now surrounded by residential development with the recent development of the 3 immediately adjacent sites, which I'll show an image of in a moment. And these developments have really changed the fabric of the area, making it hard to pull people behind those residential developments to commercial uses. And the owners have worked with a broker for many years at this point, not to just bring office here, but any other commercial use, hotel, retail, senior living, and have obviously not been successful, which is why we are here. And those conversations have confirmed the challenges we've described and you've heard tonight as significant barriers to bringing any true commercial development. So this image helps to illustrate these challenges a bit. As you can see, we're at the end of the Roland Clark Place cul-de-sac at the back of what is now an existing neighborhood. You see the Valley Park townhomes and the Sunrise Square townhomes. You also see the Point at Reston multifamily development directly to the east, which this site was rezoned with that one about 4 or 5 years ago. And this site was envisioned as phase 2 of that development, but stalled because of this 25% non-residential requirement. As you can also see in this image, this is now a residential neighborhood that does not really have any open space or recreational opportunities to speak of. So we really believe this is a great opportunity to modify the comp plan for this site to redevelop an aging office building to permit better utilization of the property for the community. So as mentioned, we're proposing to permit redevelopment with residential uses and a public use component. This shows the current concept plans for that proposal in the context of the surrounding site. Different colors obviously represent different uses throughout the project. You can see the yellow here representing residential and multifamily portions of the building, the pink representing the indoor public amenity, which we'll speak to in a moment what that could be. But you see it's conveniently located right off of Roland Clark Place to be easily accessible for the adjacent uses. And then the green is envisioned as programmed open space, also conveniently located. And the idea here is this indoor and outdoor public space will really work well together and create one meaningful recreational space for these adjacent communities to really complete the neighborhood. Here's just a zoomed in version quickly. Again, yellow representing the residential portion of the concept. The blue, which I didn't just mention, is envisioned as private amenity space for the residents. And then the green and pink representing the public amenity. And finally, the parking garage towards the toll road. So next we want to jump into a few slides just on what could be in those public amenity spaces for the Reston community. We've been working on this for several years now and have started discussions with the Park Authority about what's needed in this area. One of those that's been identified is pickleball courts, and we've initially designed that indoor space to fit for pickleball courts. Fairfax County, as some of you know, I'm sure recently commissioned a study on highlighting the growing popularity of this sport in the county and the need for additional facilities, specifically indoor courts in this area. And we really think this is a great option that would be appreciated in Reston. This is really a great sport for all ages. My husband is a elementary school PE teacher in Fairfax County, and he always mentions this as one of the best sports to teach the kids. That can be a lifetime activity. We have also explored pairing these courts with a raised track above to get even more out of the space for the community. Idea being that there's a 2-lane track to walk and run around while pickleball or whatever sport is happening below. We've also looked into the possibility of an indoor sport court and maybe a portion of that space to provide more flexibility in the recreation activities that are offered. And this image kind of gives you an idea of what that could look like. And lastly, we've started discussion about the outdoor space, and we really want to be intentional with the programming and not have it be open space for open space sake. One concept is the possibility of a destination playground. These are more intentionally designed and elevated playground from what you might see in a pocket park in Reston. And the vision here is that families can come, parents play pickleball while the kids and grandparents play on the playground, and have these two spaces work well together. And so, and obviously this isn't just for families, but really would be to the benefit of anyone in this community with recreation needs. So these are all concepts we're exploring at this stage, and we are open to others. But in any event, we've reserved significant space in the plan for these type of public uses that is of real significant value at no cost to the county and the community. And lastly, I'll note that the proposal generally supports many of the Reston specific planning goals, including affordable housing, general connectivity, and the provision of quality open spaces and recreational facilities that are walkable for residents. With that, I'll turn it over to Bruce or Neil that we do have on the line, the property owners, if there's anything you guys want to add before we wrap up.
This is Neil. No, I think that's it. It's just that I think that the proposal offers the county something that it needs, and it's at our expense, and it's there for the county. That's all I can say.
Thanks, Neil. And thank everybody for your time. Again, we're asking to only modify the land use designation already here for this site and acknowledging the need for a mix of uses, but asking we be afforded the flexibility to develop residential paired with public uses that will provide greater benefits to the county and the community. And so we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Amanda. I see. We'll start with Tammy.
Thank you so much. Oh, Amanda, I'm freaking out. The idea that you are even considering the possibility of providing public open space, I just want to leap through the screen and hug you to death. I really am so thrilled. The devil is in the details, and who would run this, and will the Park Authority agree to do it? Obviously, pickleball is a huge need. The open sports court is also, the idea of putting an indoor track above it, amazing. Then flip over to the fact that you're doing programmed open space within a destination park. Unbelievably valuable. Look around at the density. This is what I've been chattering about constantly. Your project alone recognizes that you're bringing in, that your other half of this lot, which has already been developed, has brought in, I don't know how many DUs, but a lot of people. The two other fairly new residential townhouses to your immediate south and southeast also brought in a slew of people. And we have no extra park space except for some little winky dinky nothing toddler lot to the far east of this. So that you're providing programmed open space is fabulous. I am thrilled. I hope that you get a go with 6 green lights. This is really unbelievably and very rare. Thank you.
No, thanks, Tammy. We appreciate that. We've been, at this trying to for a long time, and we have started discussions, as you mentioned, devil's in the details with the Park Authority, and they're open to the discussion. So we appreciate the opportunity to continue having those discussions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm going to not ask you another question.
Okay, next Lynn has a question. Lynn, you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, David. I just want to say thank you so much, Amanda. This is a great presentation that you shared. I do want to say that I'm really kind of surprised that the one office building that is left in this location that I really do think is one of the iconic Reston, it's representative of iconic Reston architecture. I really would hate to see that go. And I think about, what Tony was talking about, the project that they are working on and the proximity of office to residential, and the fact that people would actually be able to walk to work. But that decreases the walkability for folks that might be working in that area. I share Tammy's enthusiasm. And I do hope that these residences will be members of Reston Association. So it's, I know that's a fine thread to weave through a needle, but, and when you say that it's going to be no cost to the community, did I hear Neil Greenbaum saying that they're going to be covering the cost of that recreational amenity, so that it will not be something that the local community or taxpayers are going to bear?
Yeah, I mean, it would be something that they would construct with the project,
Okay.
not,
The maintenance. Okay.
Yeah. And all
Okay.
the minutia and the nuances of that moving forward would obviously have to be figured out. But no, it is something they're offering with the project, with their with construction of it.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Lynn, this is Neil Greenblum, if I may speak.
Hi,
So
Neil.
right now, hi. So right now, there's an apartment building across the way from the office building.
Mhm.
Not a single person in there goes to the office building or vice versa.
But yeah.
Yeah, so that's just the reality. And then the second thing is that the office building will only function the way you might think in terms of being an iconic building if it has tenants. We going forward, we see great difficulty with that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Couple of questions from me, John Carter. Lynn, the building you're talking about is the pond building. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, this is the one. I think that I think there were 5 tenants in that building. This is the one that is to the west, I think, of the pond building.
Yeah.
Pond building's to the east, but okay.
Yeah, this is to the west. So this is going closer towards the Weston.
Okay. Well, I think the comp plan process was close to this. I believe maybe it wasn't worded quite the way you wanted it, but I think it was close to this. I don't know that you've seen the new draft, and I know that the staff was opposed to the language that the community came up with on this and wanted to just go back to the original with the 75-25%. So your SSPA idea is probably a good one. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I don't know that you've seen it, but that's the latest draft that we have, that the staff is just going back to the 75-25. And I don't see any problems substituting public use space for non-residential. I always thought it was non-residential, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think either works, John, like the task force language or the existing language. So I think we just want to, kind of clean up the kind of inconsistencies and the lack of clarity in this language entirely.
I get that. And I think your approach is right to do this with an SSPA. You do have design challenges, and we've talked about this before. And then again, not quite as important on this one as the last two, but I think starting with the comp plan would be a good notion, and how close you really are to the comp plan. Rather than just the wild, wild west, we just propose a new project because we're here. So I think that would be useful for this one, given how close it is. And then some of the things that Lynn and Tammy were saying, that some of the real public benefits to this. So thank you. That's enough for me, I think. What was the difference between this and the comp plan? The percentages? I mean, the new drafted language that you've seen. What was the
Are you asking the difference between the current comp plan language and what the task force proposed?
No, the task force. You said that language wasn't quite what you wanted, but I just wondered what the gist of that was.
So the language in the task force language did acknowledge that public uses could possibly count as non-residential, but that's about as far as it went. And also doubled down on that 25% threshold,
I see.
and which is a problem for the size of this site.
So that's
Was it also the 3.55 FAR?
I think that the FAR was the same in both.
Yeah, it was, but that's taken out in the new staff draft.
So John, this is Mark. We haven't seen the new staff draft. I think to Amanda's, I think to Amanda's point, the challenge has been twofold. One, 25% of the gross floor area being non-residential or public use or any other use, quite frankly, is too high of a bar.
I get that.
Is too high of a bar. And so the idea of substituting the public use was an equivalency factor, not of square footage, but of benefit.
Right.
And the task force language kept the 25% requirement in there, but said public uses were allowed. And in talking to zoning staff, they don't know how to implement that. And so consequently, planning staff had one view, zoning staff has another view. And so the intent is to get clarity that we're getting rid of the 25% gross floor area expectation entirely, but that the residential would be tied with or complemented by public uses.
Right. And I get that. I fully understand that. You're also adding the outdoor space that would be more useful. I was tremendously disappointed that you got rid of that bocce court, but anyway, I'll leave that alone.
It can come back.
Open to discussion.
Kidding, of course.
So I think Tammy has another question.
Yes, and I'm John, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry to bring up one more question. Could you put the slide up that shows the plan view of the site, please, with the playground area and the pink? One thing I just recognized, yes. Okay, we can do this. Just below or south of the green are the backyards of contemporary townhomes there. Thank you. And so I just want to confirm you would have some sort of a landscaped type fence so that people aren't wandering from the playground right into those people's backyards or that other cluster.
Certainly, we would work with the Park Authority and with our design and in consideration of the adjacent uses and make it, accessible for them, but not problematic.
That's right. Actually a driveway back there, isn't it? Not the backyard. That's a driveway.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it a driveway? I thought it was the backyard. Yes. The bocce court was on top of the backyards. I mean,
no, the bocce court
immediately adjacent to it.
Bocce court is in the green, and there's a driveway from the townhouses in the back. Those are backloaded townhouses.
Okay, thanks, John. And then to the west is a really steep grade that goes up to the Weston. So obviously you would be treating that with landscape and whatever. That could be a hell of a slide. So just a thought. Anyway,
certainly something we'll consider. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is again, one of the only plans that has come through that has any outdoor space for the actual residents who all live here. And then this indoor thing is off the charts. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tammy.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, if not, then that concludes our meeting, and I just wanted to show some important dates. The next Hunter Mill District meeting, the third one, is Tuesday, January 31st, and that's going to be a virtual meeting. Then, as I said previously, on February 1st, there is a Tyson's meeting that will discuss the one Hunter Mill nomination we received in the Tyson's area. Following that, there are the planning here. Here are the dates for the Planning Commission workshops. There's going to be 3, possibly 4 workshops if needed, and they start Wednesday, February 22nd, and they'll conclude on Wednesday, March 15th. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at the information you see on the screen.
Hey, David, this
Yes.
is Mark. Can I ask a question, or maybe
Sure.
this is better posed to John, but at these work sessions, have you all figured out what the format of that is going to be and what participation, if any, the nominators would have in that conversation with the Planning Commission?
No, I don't think we figured that out, but this is a pretty good format, the way these have been run, I think. But
Yeah, Mark, this is Salem Bush from the Department of Planning and Development. I think we still need to figure out exactly what the format of those workshops are going to be. So we can contact you offline and talk to you more about that if you'd like.
That'd be great. I mean, there's some benefit to the presentations that were done tonight to help elucidate exactly what's happening in a way that maybe the Planning Commission doesn't always get to see in this context. And so I'm sensitive to the time, but also thinking that trying to get some of this out on the table in a discussion format might be beneficial for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take that comment down and we'll talk to the team about it and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for attending the meeting, and it looks like we're going to adjourn 4 minutes early tonight. And Tammy, did you have a question? You have your hand raised.
So sorry, but I do want to take the opportunity, David, to thank you for an excellently run SSPA run and all of your Bush and everybody who's helping you. It's really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate everybody's participation. That's, seeing a lot of people come to these meetings is always good for staff. So just to know that you guys have comments and are interested in the projects and can relay this to us so that we can do something with those comments is absolutely appreciated from us too. So thank you for your involvement.
All right, well, if no one has anything else, I guess the meeting is adjourned. Thanks again for attending, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.